guys, it's Holly. So today I wanted to give you the complete rundown on the entirety of the summer 2022 LEGO Harry Potter wave. Now in total, there will be 5 sets releasing. Now interestingly enough, there are a ton of different release dates for them this year. So on the 1st of June, these sets will be releasing in the UK and Europe. On the 19th of June, they will be releasing in the US. And in Australia, majority of this stuff has actually been moved to the 1st of August, with some sets coming out on the 1st and the 23rd of June, that being the Shrieking Shack on the 1st, and then Grimmauld Place should be releasing on the 23rd of June. It's chaotic, it's messy. I would definitely recommend double checking on the sets that you want when they're releasing, purely because I feel like it's just an overall mess. Now in the summer wave as well, there will be one Brickhead set releasing, which is the Professors. However, since it's a Brickhead set, I don't really count it as part of the summer wave. It's also not out yet and I don't have it in my hands, so that is why it is not included in the lineup here. Now this wave overall is definitely leaning towards the more expensive side. It sort of reminds me of Star Wars, but even Star Wars has sets on the lower end range. Now while prices will start at $20 US, majority sort of lean towards the $100 price point, with the most expensive set being Grimmauld Place at $120 US. So in this video, I'm basically going to go through, give you guys my ranking of all of the sets. I'm also going to go through which sets are best for display, which are the best play sets, as well as which sets are best for minifigures, and overall just my top picks, which was the most accurate, and really give you just the complete rundown and overview of the set in order to help you make decisions when going to buy these sets, as well as what I think are going to be the most popular based on what I have seen and what I have heard from my reviews. Overall, this wave is fantastic, and I feel like there's not a lot that you can really go wrong with in this wave. It's a massive step up from last year, so I would highly recommend, unfortunately, a lot of these sets. However, the main overall complaint that I've had with this entire wave is that the price points seem to be a bit higher than usual. There are some sets that just feel like they were priced $10 too expensive, and then when I look back at last year's wave or even the 2020 wave, it feels a bit ridiculous. Now I do try and keep in mind that there are prices in terms of fuel, which means transportation costs have gone up. However, with LEGO being such a global company and shipping the amount of products that they do, it really overall I don't think should affect them all that much, not to mention the fact that they made $1 billion last year. So the fact that some of these sets are just the prices that they are, I feel like is pushing it a little bit. I feel like as great as these products and designs and sets are, for most of these, you should definitely be waiting for a 10% off, 20% off sale. Look around at your local stores and online, find a competitive price and purchase from them rather than directly from LEGO themselves, because I just feel like a lot of these sets at their recommended retail are not worth it unless you really cannot wait. So first up, if you're like me and minifigures are a really big factor to you and often can sway your decision on whether or not to get a set, these are definitely the sets that I think have the best value for money in terms of minifigures, as well as just a overall great selection and even number. Now there's also quite a lot of sets in this wave that have a number of animals, so I have pulled them out here as well, because a lot of the time that can make up a lot of value in people's minds, as well as just be considered a character. So starting off, we have the smallest set, which is the Hogwarts carriage, and I actually really love this minifigure selection considering the price point. It's definitely one of the highlights. The fact that you get a Thestral, which is the first time it's been brought back since 2018, is amazing. You also get a baby Thestral, which I'm pretty convinced is going to be the only time that it actually appears in LEGO form, but you also get a brand new Harry Potter, which is very, very, very rare, and as well as a brand new Luna, who now has size accurate legs for that movie, which is amazing. And I really feel like for that low price point, while the build might be lacking a tiny bit, I feel like the minifigure selection and just the parts, like including these creatures, is fantastic. Now the other two should be no surprise. It is the 2 biggest sets. Starting off, we've got Grimmauld Place. This minifigure selection does unfortunately reuse a lot of characters we've seen before, which again is sort of understandable considering like the characters that you'd expect to be in Grimmauld Place, but all of them have technically brand new versions. I mean, Harry Potter is reusing existing parts, but I mean technically it's a new combination. He's honestly the weakest link. I mean, also besides the fact that Crookshanks looks like she's like radioactive and isn't quite the sort of dark orange tabby cat that I feel like you'd expect in Lego form. All of these figures are amazing. Kingsley is a great way if you missed out on the CMF to be able to get him. However, if you do have the CMF version, he is a downgrade. Tonks and Sirius by far though are the biggest winners, and not to mention Creature, who is just fantastic and looks great. I just wish though that his mouth was printed. Otherwise, I feel like it is an absolutely stellar lineup, and there is a great selection here, especially for that high price point. But even better than that, I think, is the Ministry of Magic. The Ministry of Magic, I mean, just being Deathly Hallows Part 1 gives you a lot of brand new characters that we have literally never seen before in Lego form, which is amazing. You get Yaxley, you get Pius, you get all of the different Polyjuice Potion variants of Ministry of Magic characters. Mathilda, Alfred, Reginald, it's just fantastic. Also even Mary Catterwall, I love them. I feel like though they are lacking a tiny bit of detail that I feel like could have been there. For example, I wish that Umbridge got skirt printing rather than Mary Catterwall. I feel like there are just very minor issues with these minifigures, but it's nothing I think too major. Overall, the lineup is spectacular, and considering it's got the exact same amount as Grimmauld Place but is a cheaper set, and also the fact that these characters are brand new, I mean, besides of course the Dementor as well, which you can get for army building, I feel like this is definitely the best value for the minifigure selection that you will get. Next up are my top picks for display, and I mean, I could have put pretty much every single set on here, but these two stood out considerably. Now, I would have loved to put the Shrieking Shack on this list, but due to all of its side builds and just how much space it takes up, I feel like it's not as good as these two models here. Firstly, the Hungarian Horntail. I mean, this thing is literally built to be displayed. Same deal with just like the other buildable creatures. However, I love the fact that the minifigure actually incorporates into the set this time rather than just sort of sitting on the front. The fact that Harry on his broomstick is flying away is fantastic. Again, it's got those same play features that all of the other buildable creatures did, so you can flap them and you can pose the wings. There's also a lot of mobility within the tail. While it can't really stand on its own too well in some positions, there is that mobility there, and overall I feel like this is a fantastic set for display and is definitely the best one. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the only one that is really built for display and not meant to be a playset. On the other hand though, we have Grimmauld Place, which is a set that was meant to be a playset, but I also feel like is a great display piece. Firstly, it doesn't actually take up that much floor space, which for the price point, look, I would have preferred it to just be a tiny bit bigger just to feel like I'm getting my money's worth. But at the same time, this is really easy to display if you are limited on space, if you have bought too many sets, if you're in a dorm room and you're a university student. It's fantastic because you can display it folded away like so, or you can open it up and just have the entire street front. You could put this on a narrow shelf, and I just love the amount of detail and the accuracy on the exterior of this model. It is fantastic, and I just think it is perfect to put on display, whether that be in a city, whether that be on a Harry Potter shelf. It's sort of like Privet Drive to me, where it's just like the perfect rendition of a London building. It just feels fantastic, and because of the fact that it doesn't take up that much floor space, I feel like that is a really, really big selling point to me and probably a lot of other people as well. Next up, we have my two favorite playsets from this wave. I love a good playset, especially playsets that double as great display pieces, which I also think are these two. Now, there are a lot of great playsets in this if you really like a dollhouse style of things. Both the Hogwarts sets are like that, don't really have any play features, which is why I sort of put these two above, because not only do they sort of follow that whole open back dollhouse sort of playset type of thing, they also have the most amount of play features that I think actually, you know, work really well and serve a purpose. Of course, starting off with Grimmauld Place, it has the best play feature I have ever seen on a set, and that is the whole transformation thing. It is amazing. It is so cool. I love just playing around with it. It also, again, makes it really interesting for display purposes. It's so much fun. I just love it. I think it is so creative and cool. And then when you turn it around, you have the whole open dollhouse effect. Besides that, aren't really too many play features unless you count like swinging people around on a broom, but that play feature alone I think makes up a lot of it. There's just nothing that I've seen that is like that. I'm so impressed that the designer George Gillett was able to do it just in general. I never thought that we were actually going to get a transforming Grimmauld Place, so the fact that we have is incredible. I think it's great. I personally love playing around with it, and I'm a fully grown adult. The Shrieking Shack, on the other hand, definitely has a lot more play features and I think is definitely more kid-central. Firstly, this building. really doesn't have many. The actual shack itself is pretty boring in the play feature department. You do have this sort of like folding up door, but really that's about it. This is mainly just dollhouse. This little fence, decorative, nothing special, but this whole like Whomping Willow structure is where your play features are. Firstly, you've got the moon, which can spin around. I mean, it's a very simple play feature, but it works pretty well. You can put Lupin on one side and the werewolf on the other, so that when you turn it around and the moon appears, he can turn into a werewolf. It's very cute, very much just like a simple transformation thing. If you turn it around to the back, you can see that there is a little handle here, which you can twist and spin around in order to make the Whomping Willow move, which I think is really awesome. It's a lot easier, I think, than the previous Whomping Willow, and then you can attach some minifigures in here. There's a lot of mobility on the tree, which makes it really easy to pose and move and just play with overall. While Harry Potter in general just has some pretty basic play features, I think both of these sets really utilize them to their advantage, not only just to have some fun with the set and make it interactive and more of a play set, but also, and more importantly in my opinion, to continue to tell the story of Harry Potter, to say what is going on in the scenes and the environment around them, which I absolutely love, and that is why these two I think are definitely the best play sets you can get. So what about sets if you have a particular budget to spend? So let's say you have $200 US that you want to spend. What should you get? I mean, firstly, I would start off with Grimmauld Place. I mean, this by far is my favorite set from this wave. I love it. I love the play features. I love the minifigures. It is a little bit expensive though, so there is that to keep in mind. I mean, you could switch this out with the Shrieking Shack, which I definitely think is a better set for its price point. However, Grimmauld Place overall is the better set out of those two, which is why I would definitely put that down. Then once you've spent $120 on that, I would honestly go towards the Hungarian Horntail. Now I know this set is definitely not for everyone. If you don't like buildable creatures, or you don't want a display piece, or you want a display piece that doubles as a play set, swap this out with Sirius Black's Escape. It's not the greatest set, but it's a Hogwarts castle and it's got some great minifigures, and if you haven't got Buckbeak, again, that's amazing. But the Hungarian Horntail to me is a much better set, a much better display piece, and overall just better value for money. The brand new Harry Potter minifigure is just spectacular, and also if you have the older Hungarian Horntail set from 2019, all of those minifigures and the tent are going to pair perfectly with this thing. And as much as I love a good playset, I honestly think that this is a far better deal than buying Sirius Black's Escape. That set is another $50, so with the tiny bit that you have left over, I feel like you might as well just get the smallest set in the wave, especially because you get the 2 Thestrals, you get 2 brand new minifigures. Look, this tree build, it's pretty pathetic, honestly. It just feels like a waste of parts. The rest of the set though is pretty solid. It's not my favorite set in the wave. I honestly think that it's definitely one of the weakest ones, but for that price point, I mean, you might as well get it. It's the only cheap set out of this wave for the most part, so I feel like it's worth it. Now when it comes to best value out of this wave, like I said, a lot of things are very expensive. They're fantastic sets, just not worth it for the price point. So when I think about best value for each set, there are only 3 that come to mind. Dumbledore's Office, the Hungarian Horntail, and the Shrieking Shack. All of these sets feel pretty fair price compared to the rest of the wave. Some of them I still feel like just a tiny bit, like literally like $5 too much, which is nothing. But overall, I think these sets are definitely worth picking up if you want to get something directly from LEGO themselves, or something on day one. Like these, you are going to feel happy with the money you're spending. Now Dumbledore's Office definitely didn't wow me over this entire wave, but I really like the design for a modular style sort of Hogwarts castle. I think it's the best done exterior ever. There's still enough interior that I feel like it works really well for play. There's a couple of great play features, some awesome minifigures. I love the Mrs. Norris mold especially. I think she's fantastic. Overall, for that price point, I really don't think you can go wrong necessarily with this as a Hogwarts set. Then there's the Hungarian Horntail, and I mean, this thing is literally just a display piece, so if you're looking for a playset, again, definitely not for you, but the value for money here I think is spectacular with him. I do not like though that it is like slightly more expensive than the other buildable creatures. It makes it a lot harder, but in comparison to the rest of the wave that he came in, I feel like the price point's a little more appealing. That being said, he is far better, and I love the part usage on him. I think the build was really interesting, really creative. The fact that as well you can modify it to take it off the base really easily is spectacular. The minifigure is amazing. It incorporates with it. This is by far the best buildable character we have had. And then lastly is the Shrieking Shack. Like I said, it's a fantastic display piece. It's also a great play set. It's a lot of fun. There's a really wide minifigure selection as well. You get 7 different minifigures as well as just different molded characters. It is amazing value, I think, for its full price point, and definitely by far, I think, the best out of these 3 when it comes to value for price. This set is a much needed and much deserved remake. I love how this set turned out. It is fantastic, and I just think, especially if you've got Hogsmeade, you cannot go wrong with getting this set. So those are all of my individual thoughts for, I guess, every single category I can think of, but how would I rank this wave entirely? Well, for me, the weakest set definitely has to be the Sirius Black Escape. It's very reminiscent to me of the Fluffy encounter from last year, but considering the price point is higher, it makes me not love it. It feels like a big waste of money to me, especially at that price point. Like, you could get the hospital wing instead, and I feel like that is a far better set for your money. Overall, I really don't think it is worth the money. I think it is a big pass unless you were really into that modular system. Just above that is the smallest set of the wave, the Hogwarts carriage, for no reason in particular, really, besides the tree. I mean, it's definitely the weakest small Harry Potter set that we've had. We've had some really good small sets from them. This is not one of them. The only really good benefit, I think, is that it's a nice small set that you can just throw on in if you've got some extra room in your budget. Next up is Dumbledore's office. I think the set has a lot of things right. I love the exterior. The interior, though, feels very weak compared to, I guess, last year's modular Hogwarts systems, which really felt very fleshed out. I think it's great value for money, and overall, I don't really have too much negative to say about it. It's overall a really solid set, but it's just not as good as all of these other builds. Moving on up next is the Ministry of Magic. Look, again, I really love this set. Being like 4th on the list isn't a bad thing because a lot of these sets are amazing. The only reason I want to put the Ministry of Magic as number 4 is purely because I feel like it feels a bit empty with this giant archway. I get why it's a thing, but it just makes the set feel much less of value than it actually is. The minifigures and the fact that it's Deathly Hallows and something we've never gotten before is really what carries this set, and I think is why I would put it over something like Dumbledore's office. But overall, it just feels like it's lacking something. It just didn't wow me the way that I feel like I wanted it to. At number 3, I was really tossing up between these next 2, but I think I have to go with the Shrieking Shack. I have wanted a Shrieking Shack remake for so long, and this definitely lived up to my expectations. The only thing I really don't like about it is actually like the Whomping Willow side build. I feel like I would have preferred something else. Like, we've had the Whomping Willow before. I get how it works for the story, and I think the build for it is fantastic, and for what it is, it's great, but I think it just takes up a bit too much space for me to like, which is why I have to put this at number 3 and not number 2, and why number 2 goes to the Hungarian Horntail. Again, I didn't really care for buildable characters. It wasn't on my radar, but the Hungarian Horntail caught my attention immediately. I mean, I'm a sucker for minifigure scale things, but the detail on this model is insane. I also think I was left wanting more after the Hungarian Horntail from 2019, and this set absolutely delivered. It was a really fun build experience. It wasn't too complicated, but it also wasn't extremely basic. There's a lot of snot techniques. Overall, I love how this set looks on display. I want to put it on my shelf. I want to make space for it because it is just amazing, and again, great value. And by far, the best set out of this wave is 12 Grimmauld Place. I would argue that this is the best set of Harry Potter this year. I would argue that it's the best set out of like the last 2 years. 12 Grimmauld Place blew me away. I am so impressed with what the designer was able to do with this set. You can tell there was just a lot of time, care, and dedication put into this set. It is amazing. I love it. So that is my overview of the entirety of the 2022 summer Harry Potter wave. Overall, this wave has absolutely impressed me, and I am so happy with the selection we got. There's a lot of variety here, both in terms of set, both in terms of build, and not to mention just a variety of films, which for me is the most important part of the Harry Potter wave. And I feel like we have a really good balance here, and I'm overall incredibly excited. And if you haven't already and want more in-depth looks at all of these sets, I have reviewed every single one of them, so I will leave a playlist at the end screen here. And if you are interested in purchasing any of these sets as well, I will leave affiliate links down in the description below for sets that are currently on pre-order or have been released. It will be updated, so please consider using them. They really help out the channel. To everyone purchasing these sets on release date, best of luck, and I hope you enjoy them as much as I did. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, consider subscribing to my channel down below, and until next time, I'll see you later.